Sabrina 2000s comic, issue 49. Sabrina brags that because of her powers, she doesn't have to waste time on boring chores. I'm guessing the writer will punish her by removing her powers for a while, revealing his jealousy of her. It was mean of her to brag in front of Salem, but it's not her fault she was born a witch. She should be punished for actually doing something wrong. She zaps up an ice cream sundae to try to cheer Salem up. Since he's in a cat's body, eating dairy like that would just give him a stomachache. She zaps up root beer for him too. I'm just feeling sorry for her because it's so obviously telegraphing the sadistic and cruel plot point coming up next. If this was a 70s cartoon, I'd have faith that she'd be allowed to use magic all she wants because that's how it was. Hilda jumps at the chance to bring her mood down, asking her if she's been sitting around all day. And Salem tells her to let Sabrina live a little. She's told to clean her room and uses magic. She zaps up cleaning stuff to her room and uses magic to clean up and redecorate. Now, you'd think that witch ants would be proud of her for being so good at her magic. After Sabrina says she's not worried about all the homework she's been getting, we see her use magic to do her homework, play video games, and then get an A+ on her term paper because she started zapping it. It's just history class. It's not like she'll get a job related to that subject. She's forced to go through those classes to move on to college. Still, I don't trust this story because it's going a long time without conflict where Sabrina's happy and boring me. She turns down being Harvey's study partner, and then she's given a pop quiz. She gets upset because when she zapped her homework, she didn't learn any of the stuff she zapped about, which you'd think her aunt would have told her about. It was immediately obvious that that'd be a problem. She can't zap the quiz out of complete nowhere because she lost her powers. She goes to her aunt and she's merely told that she's out of magic, rather than her actually losing her powers as a punishment for cheating on her schoolwork. That, while realistic, would completely ruin the fun escapism of the series. I'd rather have an interesting story than something depressing where she gets punished. It's interesting that even this comic had her run out of magic. And this is a kind of believable way to balance things. Her magic battery runs out, I guess for the same reason that regular batteries do. She's gonna be fixed up by the top witch doctor from the other realm. I like that her aunt cared enough to do that for her instead of jumping at the chances to be rude to her and punish her by saying, "No, you're gonna live without your powers for a month for using your magic too much." That's what I expect them to do in the animated series. The story has too many panels for the story it's trying to tell. After she sees that the magazines in the waiting room are from the 1800s, she somehow gets surprised at seeing the witch doctor look like a witch doctor. She's eventually told in this slow-paced story to eat one of these enchanted apples a day for a week to get her magic back. She thanks the doctor, as I wonder why this took so long to happen to her. She's told to stop zapping her homework and chores. Why can't she zap her chores though? There's nothing wrong with that, and that won't use up too much magic. And she lives a mundane life. So if she's not using magic for chores, what else would she use it for? So she starts studying with Harvey, but obviously she'd be too distracted by him to really take in the information. The story seems to be just an excuse to make Salem say that an apple a day keeps the witch doctor away. So I can see where the writer got the story idea from, or at least the resolution. It seems like a lazy plot. It was even done before in the 70s comic. You run out of magic points in RPGs too. In the comedy page, the beach is crowded, so the ants don't know if they can find a decent spot. They end the story by attracting people's attention, floating a sleeping person on a cloth above them. The ants in Salem are happy about being really obvious about their magic. I guess they're not afraid of scaring people away from them on the beach. In the next story, Sabrina thinks a bake sale looks like fun. She decides to bake brownies with her own recipe instead of a cookbook's recipe because she's an idiot. So go figure, her brownies get burnt. Salem says he used to be a king's personal baker, and brownies were his specialty. Did brownies even exist back in those days? Well, I'm sure the witches would be able to invent anything with their magic. He makes brownies for Sabrina, and she has a sudden urge to clean her room after eating them, which is the do your best spell effect. Because he recklessly put that spell on all of the brownies for the bake sale when he could have easily not done that, the people who eat it get affected by the spell that doesn't make it clear whether your best is evil or not. At least the brownies raise a lot of money at the bake sale. Salem gets ambitious and says they should start their own business, which is also something he could have easily not decided to do. It's so obvious that this is gonna go wrong. Sabrina asks someone to let her sell her brownies in his market. He loves them and wants 10 cases. I have a feeling that's not this easy. It should be explained that he was brainwashed into agreeing, like, buy the brownie. Then it turns out that Salem's shedding because the seasons are changing, which also could have easily not happened if this happened at a different time. At least Sabrina explains why he started shedding. So because Salem was making the cookies, he gets cat hair in the brownies, and that ruined Salem's business, and not the spell that was on the brownies. You'd think it'd show off people doing a bunch of bad things because the brownies inspired them. But that'd be dark. And it'd be creative because it would require the writer to think of a whole bunch of different things that people are doing. Sabrina says she at least got a few new outfits paid for by it. And the story ends with them looking ridiculous because he invented a full-body hairnet. This is another story that I could imagine would be in the animated series, no problem. In fact, I'm imagining Salem looking like that in my head. Because it's just like the cat food business story. Salem gets his hopes up, has a business, and of course, it fails. In the next story, unfortunately, Sabrina gets welcomed back to the magic school she clearly didn't need. So that's gonna waste my time. She thanks Shinji for complimenting her appearance and is told to pair up. And they're told to just use potion ingredients for this next spell in a precise way. Somehow Shinji is a complete idiot and assumes the teacher was exaggerating and he isn't using too much. This is terrible writing. Go figure, it screws up. These two characters are impossible to relate to when they're this brainless. He summons a dragon, and he decides to grab Sabrina's hand and ride on the dragon for fun, when they could summon a dragon anytime. Sabrina thinks she's gonna get in trouble, making me wish she was kicked out of magic school so they could get back to plots that are creative and engaging. And they're still able to do those plots, so they should be all the time. He tells her to live a little, and she says it's beautiful out here. I'm just wondering how they're so stupid. They could have frozen time! Then they could have gotten away with doing this dragon ride, no problem! They surprise some picnicking witches and decide to agree to head back to class. She thanks them, and they get told to stay after class and practice until they'd get the assignment done correctly. Who cares about the assignment? They don't need to know how to do this. It's not life or death, and it won't help Sabrina out in her normal life. It's not like she's planning to get a job that requires magic and proficiency at it. It's not like we were told that she wants to go to magic school so she can become a magic teacher. The story ends with them still not getting it done right. This is Sabrina we're talking about. Well, that was a waste of time. At least it was an unexpected twist that they flew on a dragon during school hours, but that doesn't require any creativity to come up with either. Did How to Train Your Dragon come out yet at this point? I don't care enough to look it up. Sabrina 2000s comic, issue 50. Sabrina happily tells Salem she's got a new job for the Other Realm's hippest magazine. She gets a holographic message from a fairy who wrote in wanting her help. What if she got one of those messages when in the bathroom? It'd suck if they could happen at any time. That wouldn't be allowed. Hopefully it's only when she's at the computer, or the story would be stupid. She says she answers pop-up notes. The fairy's got a crush on a wizard, and naturally the difference in their sizes means he won't consider dating her. If she had a brain, she'd immediately give up on this, or tell him to use magic. Otherwise, she wouldn't enjoy dating him either. She naturally advises her to become good friends with him first and hope that he'll cast an enlargement spell on her. Sabrina gets thanked for the smart advice, that was actually kinda obvious. And Salem gets thanked for congratulating her. Then a teen Frankenstein monster asks for help. The alien's called Frankie, just like one of the idiot ghoulie characters in the 70s Sabrina cartoon. I wish that was an intentional reference. It's not original. He can't find a date because he's a mellow guy, and not because of his looks. Well, there are plenty of weird-looking monsters in the other realm. She says she'll invite interested girls to write in. He thanks her, and the next day, she's invited to Harvey's Halloween party after he uncharacteristically calls her Brina. It turns out she really can be called in school. Well, that's unbelievable. Why am I expected to care about these strangers' girl problems? He says he likes his sun goddess and he can't go near the sun. She tells him she'll get back to him on that one. He should just give up. He thanks her, and Sabrina's overworked later. She decides to be a cat girl for Halloween. Why should I care? And she's affectionate to Salem. She goes to her computer to try to find a spell that allows Drac to be in the sunlight. First off, why isn't she going to the magic book for this? Second, There was already a vampire named Drac in the 70s Sabrina cartoon. I guess this was also completely coincidental, because the name is just a really lazy name for a vampire. Also, couldn't she just have Hilda's tanning potion that makes vampires immune to the sunlight? I suppose the 70s comic isn't canon to this. More importantly, I bet the writers didn't even read that story. But something like it. It's kind of an easy idea to come up with that a witch's potion could make someone immune to the sunlight. I guess she wants to go to a computer to find that kind of... She wouldn't need to go to a computer to find a spell. Then she's asked for help with making a werewolf's fur shiny and lustrous because it's got split ends. She says she could get a good recipe for a conditioning potion. She gets asked for help from 2 different people at once. There'd be an insanely high turnover rate on this job. They won't just let anyone call the person, no matter how many people it is. Sabrina apologizes, and then a woman with stupid-looking eyes calls her, interested in Frankie. He thanks Sabrina, and he doesn't know how to ask her out because he's nervous, even though she was interested. Why can't she ask him out? I thought she would, actually. Sabrina says that if you're nervous about a date, it usually helps to meet in a group setting like a party. Why am I suddenly being expected to take Sabrina super seriously as a giver of smart, romantic advice? She's made so many stupid mistakes. She says she can help them all with their problems if they come with her to Harvey's party. At least she has the excuse that everyone will think they just have great costumes. But she should cast a spell on the people there to make sure they think that, because you think their mouth movements would make people suspicious. She creates a costume with magic and thanks Salem, and Salem tells her to have fun at the party. Her costume is complimented at the party, and Harvey compliments the so-called costumes of the monsters. She thanks him for deciding to get her some punch. She tells Drac to wear an enchanted ring and say some magic words that activate the spell, letting him go into the sun. Putting sun lotion on him that'd make him immune to sunlight actually makes more sense, because it's like sunscreen. He thanks her and says he'll invite Sunny right now. She gives Wolfie some normal conditioner, and he just happens to be named Wolfie. The same name as the werewolf from the 70s Sabrina cartoon, but he looks nothing like that guy, just like Drac. I don't think Wolfie looked good in the 70s cartoon, so I suppose it's good to have a redesign, but I don't actually remember what his redesign looks like when reading out the script. So it must have been really forgettable. With that easy, predictable ending where she hands out predictable MacGuffins, the story ends. Not expected to end with her quitting her job. I guess we're supposed to just assume that happened. In the comedy page, Sabrina says Salem should get exercise from playing with cat friends. He stupidly says he won't let a cat chase him around. He should know a witch would summon one up because he said that. Surprisingly, she summons an outright tiger, which must be magically slow enough to let Salem run away from him. And she'd better have it be a part of the spell that the tiger won't try to kill or hurt him when it actually catch up to him. Otherwise, that'd be uncharacteristically insane of her. In the next story, Salem can't go on the annual visit to Aunt Hira's place because she's allergic to cats, so she gets a rash from them. I'm allergic to cats, and that's not what the allergic reaction is in my experience. He's gonna be sent to a kennel because they're smart enough to not trust him at home alone. Salem threatens to tell everyone his family is full of witches and he's a warlock, and has to be told that he just wind up in a carnival sideshow. The pets worry that they'll never see their owners again, and Salem explains that they'll be back. Then he talks jealously about the fact that their owners are living it up. He easily unlatches his cage with dexterity, and borrows paperwork from the humans who run this place to prove to the pets what their owners are doing. Salem wastes a lot of time telling the animals the truth and getting them jealous. He says they should have a party, letting them out and getting expensive snacks from the lobby, and ordering pizza and soda, with what money? I'm forced to assume he stole the money. Are there security cameras in a place like this on at night? Once again, for some reason the stories with Salem interacting with animals have the other animals be just as human as him and weird me out. The cat is eating pizza with no hint that there will be consequences. The ferrets are somehow able to have a limbo competition. Then the humans show up and find empty pizza boxes and pet food bags there, while the pets are all back in their cages. A pizza delivery boy shows up because he's here to collect on a pizza order he delivered last night. Why did he wait until now to get the money? That seems unrealistic. He mentions an expired credit card that Salem phoned in. Sabrina's family show up because they're asked to because of the bill, which Zelda compares to a luxury hotel suite. I guess I kind of find this satisfying because Was there any reason for them to abandon Salem at the kennel? He's still a person. Too bad they didn't know any other family members of theirs that they'd love and trust enough to babysit Salem while they're gone for free. Instead, they just trapped him in a cage for weeks on end. Somehow he expects to be sent to this place again later. This whole plot could have easily been avoided if the witches were smart enough to simply cast a spell to freeze him in time for the entire duration of their time away from him, instead of sending him to a kennel. Why didn't they turn him into a non-cat animal? Or statue? Then they could take him to their aunt named after a goddess without her getting allergic. Why was she named after a goddess anyways? In the next story, Sabrina gets left alone unsupervised while her aunts are gonna go to a single witch convention overnight. Isn't it out of character for them at this point to trust Sabrina alone? Why would they think she won't throw a party? Zelda tells her to send them a message if they're needed as they warp away. Out of nowhere, Esmeralda and her friends warp here for a sleepover. At least that's less predictable than Sabrina throwing a party again. Rather than them being here to keep Sabrina too busy to have a party, instead they only agreed to this because they weren't paying attention. They were looking over their convention brochures. Esmeralda uses magic on the house because her sleepovers always have a theme, and now it's the great outdoors. And actually, she doesn't actually want to be outdoors because of bugs. She's naturally not allowed to have a campfire in the house. And Sabrina says she'll make them s'mores with a microwave. Too bad she's too dumb to simply freeze all of them in time until her aunts would get back. This whole plot could have been avoided. She could brainwash them into leaving. The doorbell rings and Harvey shows up, confused about all of this. And Sabrina says it's amazing what you can do with a trip to the home improvement store. Esmeralda says he's cute, so she wants him to stay for the scary stories. Sabrina's about to say he has to leave, only to let him try to tell a scary story. When he tells a story about a swamp monster, Esmeralda summons it to scare him away. I have to assume it's out of boredom. After all, he did start the story in the most cliché way. Somehow he ran through the wall and kept going. That must have been part of the spell that summoned the swamp monster. Why does Esmeralda keep bothering Sabrina? She has nothing to gain. She'd find her annoying because she's an authority figure over her. She's supposed to stay in her immediate family. This made sense at first, but she's come here too many times to not feel contrived. The first story is about Sabrina running out of magic. After, it felt like a 70s style story because Sabrina got to use a whole lot of magic benefiting herself and didn't get punished for it. So that was nice until she ran out of magic, which was already used in the 70s, so that's a lazy story idea. But at least it was new that she needed an apple a day from a witch doctor to get the magic back. In the second story, she tells Salem about a bake sale, and Salem cooks a whole bunch of magic brownies. Like, why do they have to be magical? It's so obvious that that could backfire. The brownies have a do your best spell on them, but it doesn't specify whether or not do your best is going to lead to evil or not. But somehow that doesn't lead to bad consequences that causes his business to fail. And instead it just so happened that he was doing the baking during shedding season. So he ends up losing his business. So that was depressing. It could have required some creativity from the writer to show us a whole bunch of different things that people did because they had do your best brownies. Why did he have to fail? He was selling people delicious brownies. In the third story, Sabrina somehow screws up at potion class, and then Shinji summons a dragon, and he decides to have a dragon ride with Sabrina to impress her, which at least shows off a new personality trait of his. It's too bad none of these all-powerful witches thought to freeze time or reverse time to undo their joyride on the dragon during school hours. They could have easily decided to ride on a dragon for fun, not during school hours. Too bad none of them could cast a perfect memory spell. The first story is about Sabrina getting a job and being pestered by strangers for romantic advice over and over again, which can somehow happen at any time. At least she manages to solve all of their problems. So it takes good advantage of her being a witch. But no one would take that job. In the second story, Salem gets left at a kennel. What an original plot that really took a lot of effort to come up with. So he has a party and punishes his family for abandoning him by charging it to their credit card. In the third story, Sabrina's cousin and her friends have a sleepover at Sabrina's place instead of hers for some reason. And Harvey gets scared out of the house. Well, I guess it was interesting to see the ways that they change the house for their sleepover.